Hello. Hello. Good morning.
Инна,
Доброе утро. Добрый
добрый день.
день.
Добрый день, добрый день. Как поживаем?
Все в порядке. Надеюсь, сейчас будут наши участники. Я высылала информацию. У нас 50 контактов. Примерно мне человек 5 подтвердило участие, поэтому смотрим сейчас, в каком
Я
составе мы
надеюсь,
будем работать.
будет хорошо. Просто единственное, я могу один срочный звонок получить. Я просто хотел сказать, что в случае чего. То
Ну,
есть
в
я могу
случае
на
чего
5-10,
говорите, и я вас подстрахую.
хорошо, 5-10 минут максимум.
Угу, понятно. Хорошо, ну как-то будем развлекать людей, спросим их
Да.
фидбэк. Дай бог еще сейчас, чтобы все получилось.
Угу.
Как там на работе?
Нормально, нормально. Сейчас у меня как раз таки кое-какие проекты сейчас с ним ложусь. И там еще уроки в универах.
Мгм.
Так, всего.
А когда диплом?
Диплом свой, этот французский.
Мгм.
Но я его получил уже. Там, ну, церемония не состоялась, но официально можно как бы получить.
Мгм. Отлично. Hello, good morning. I see that some of our participants are getting ready. Just in case, we'll switch the light. Mr. or Mrs. Bui, from which country are you joining us? Okay. By my timing, it's 11:29. I think we will wait for another 2-3 minutes. My colleague from Spain, Mr. Daniel Rura, is joining us. So we are all living by accurate timing. Let's see. I propose us to wait a couple of more minutes and start. Mr. Dadashov, the way we will be working is like this. I'm proposing you may switch the option. We give you time for a speech about 15 to 20 minutes, and then the same timing we will leave for questions answer part. And like this, we will try to make our participants to ask questions.
Okay, sure.
Okay, and also this will be recorded, and we will be able to send you and the participants the video in case for just refreshing the memory. But please accept the topic, also tell us something of the professional background, or you can compare the countries where you've been working recently.
Okay. Portfolio trying to reduce their dependence on oil and gas sector. So this is really exciting the period. The companies like the BP, Equinor, and Exxon, they from 2020 they start uh, hitting this a lot of investment for switching the energy transition, especially the way they set their businesses, and then if they have the plans in terms of the investment plan for the core, the oil and gas traditional activities, they're reducing the portion it and then investing on renewable energy. So we'll definitely will come up with interesting points.
How do you think this is going to switch? Are major companies will take over the renewables, or new players will come to challenge the big oil companies?
Actually, what we see from the trend, the role of the huge companies is already is changing. Like uh, they probably, of course, it's the new players also can be in the market, but the huge players who is this already is was a centuries like the BP, Exxon, and then the Equinor. They definitely they find out this is trend for nowadays. It's not about to focus and concentrate in the core activities like the production, oil and gas, but at the same time going for diversification. Uh, what we see that in US, in the Europe, they actively investing the infrastructure of to renewing like the infrastructure on the green energy. Where we see that countries like the Netherlands and Denmark and the Scandinavian countries, the almost the changing the structure. Even when I lived the 2 months in the Netherlands, the elementary one just to visit like the technical shop in order to get any machine like the coffee machine or any kind of like electronic equipment. They say we are saving like the one you'd like to obtain 1,200 kilowatts. It's not allotted there anymore because they're saving like the energy power, and which they are in terms of the creating another infrastructure, which is what actually it says a lot of things that what we expect in the near like the 5 years or 10 years. But ultimately, the things will be changed within the 5 years because, as I mentioned, there's like big players like BP, Exxon, and Equinor. They started and diversify the portfolio, they modify the businesses, specifically the counter. They said they have a huge investment. They are setting a lot of solar energy. They're setting a lot of wind energy, and then geothermals. It depends on the countries.
Dear Kamal, we have already the participants. Thank you for such a nice introduction, and you started already the topic with a dialogue. Dear gentlemen, as far as I can see, let me present to you Mr. Kamal Dadashov, who is now working and holding the position of advisor to Vice President in SOCAR, Baku, Azerbaijan. You all know this oil and gas company, very famous, also with affiliate in Geneva. And Mr. Dadashov is a professor to several business schools, and he is an expert over 14 years in this industry. Today, he will be covering the topic on impact of oil and gas export in different countries, the post-COVID period, and role of alternative energies. You are welcome to start the questions just after his speech. Mr. Dadashov is a specialist in corporate finance, consulting, audit, and also risk management. And he is most of the time traveling, and we can see him face to face here in Geneva. This is the good time when we can do the conference, let's say, for the students. I hope we will see you this year as soon as COVID travels restrictions will be ended. So Mr. Dadashov and dear participants, thank you for being here. Floor is yours, and I let you start, and then I will ask participants to mute the microphones so that we can have a better connection, and we start with the questions in 15 to 20 minutes. Thank you so much.
Oh, yeah, thank you very much, Ina, and thank you very much, Daniel, it was a pleasure again to see you guys. And they unfortunately, with these the restrictions, we're not able to meet each other a lot of time. But what we're gonna do, hope that for the best, this things is gonna be easing, and then this um, restriction will be lifted, and definitely we will restore like our uh, dynamic meetings and dynamic discussions with the colleagues as well. And they asked Ina introduced me about myself. I've been working in finance field around like 14 years. I started my career from the consulting and got my master degrees in Europe and France, in the Czech Republic and Switzerland. I recently completed my executive MBA in Switzerland and France as well, and also work in different fields of finance, starting consulting, auditing, the risk management in commercial banks. And last my 8 years, I've been involved in working in oil and gas company. It's named SOCAR. It's the biggest state oil company of Azerbaijan Republic. Our main like the activities is they cover this whole energy sector, starting from the downstream, upstream, and midstream activities. Also, we have um, effectively efficient like the chains and the international the businesses. We have trading activities in Geneva, in Singapore, in Dubai, and yeah, that's about a company. My role was starting from the modeling, financial modeling, and then I just grew up in business optimization, development, and then the last my position is regarding, as Ina mentioned, I'm advisor, vice president, economics and finance. So this is a brief about myself. Today, what we are going to tackle on the recent, like the curves, what's happening in the global market, starting from the March. Uh, that definitely we all living the same the planet, and then what we actually see this coronavirus, which started from the March, and then how it's impacted all industries, specifically oil and gas. And right, crude oil is enjoyed its like the premium status of the what we call the financial assets for years. We like in some companies it's a restricted value, which is that it's called. So however, the things has changed in 2020, where the performance of crude oil is uh, so far this year can be also described as anything by stable. And uh, U.S. targeted like the just I'm just giving the brief information within like the 2020s, and then most powerful military commander in an ongoing COVID-19 pandemic and the Saudi Russia oil prices, which is started in the March 2020, have been among the key factors in terms of contributing the commodities wise right. And then one of the most memorable days for market that was in April, because even the Mr. President Trump is also it's mentioned that's the in late like 2020 April months will be the hardest period at all. when he mentioned that absolutely after this declaration, uh, we've seen some volatility in the global markets, and then April 2002, when the U.S. crude oil or West Texas Intermediate, we saw VTI, the futures tumbled like the minus $30 per barrel, which was the first and historical event in the whole history, which is the slipping in the negative territory, and for the first time, as I mentioned, in the history. So, as the commodity plummeted against the background of the significant drop in global demand and immense oversupply, many investors have chosen to run for the exit. So what we actually saw that in the May, the most of the investors who are the holding the futures for VTI, they started selling. That's which was the reason uh, in terms of the dropping, that enormous dropping in the crude oil prices. So even since the crude oil has also managed to recover some of its losses, with the barrels VTI was at $40 and Brent crude hovering around 42. That was a start after the August, and then what we saw to stable the prices until the last 2 weeks, because the first sign of increasing the price, what we expect that was related with the deploying the vaccine, because that was a big sign. We were expecting this is it will the positive impact, and we'll see the increase on the prices. And of course, that's the coincide with the realities, which is actually uh, we are we see and then and the plus the U.S. government has declared about a shortage in the storages in the crude oil, which is also positively impacted in the increasing the price, crude oil prices, which is around the 57, 58. Of course, uh, the this volatility we see this was dropping $3 or $2 within the last 2 weeks, and of course, with the change of the governmental status in U.S. and coming this Biden, definitely there also will be different, because what we actually saw as the first financial crisis after 2010, that was a period of the Democrats, and then the guys they're not that much uh, the the perfect in terms of uh, the core, like the energy activities like oil and gas, the more related like the green energy, and then therefore in terms of to reduce to be less dependence on the core oil and gas products. And of course, we'll see a lot of dynamics and changes. We'll see volatility within this year, but for now, the sign it shows uh, at the same time the growing of the Chinese market, which is also will impact in positively in consumption the oil and oil products. And but definitely for the first period, U.S. government, U.S. economy should also restore because of this Corona, and they made a lot of loss in terms of like this is period. They a lot of social packages, a lot of um, contribution in terms of the preserving the economy. So what we see that's for the recent period, we'll see uh, more or less this the positive trend on the price on the crude oil prices. And then rise and the fall of crude oil, how the year can change everything. Of course, it started from the September 19, when the major Saudi Arabian or processing the plant were attacked by a series of explosions. It also damaged the sole country's output with the shed by 50% percent and 5 cents per world daily global oil production. And the price then fell lower, pick up another, let's say, uptrend that's started from October and continued until 2020. So this is the more, let's say, general overview regarding from 2020 and a little bit forecast 2021. Yeah, that's the most introduction, the part regarding oil and gas, the markets. I'll be happy definitely to answer your questions if you
Mr.
got them.
Dadashov, this is very serious topic. I'm wondering the way, how do you present these topics to the student? Let's say if you are talking about industries, do you use any kind of case studies? How do you connect this huge theory to like practical experience? How you use
Oh,
in the teaching?
yeah, you got it. Thank you enough for question. Normally, this kind of the sessions, we it's not a part of like any specialization course. It's a part of any orientation course, which we are deliver within the maximum 3 days. Of course, it is more research based. Let's say this, the courses are typically based on the making the research, doing the case studies, bringing new ideas, and then to see this each like the approach as an expert, as analyst. Like it's not about like to give the specific theoretical task to the student they can read and understand the processes. But it's more than this, like the theoretical. It's more like the practical research should be conducted and the bring from each students. And the best way, of course, to in order to consume at least a small portion of this what's going on in the oil and gas markets, it should be provided in case studies, a paper-based research, which will cover around like the maximum for 10 pages, or it's kind of like that. So things should be based on the case studies or small researches.
I see that five companies from around the world has joining us. Maybe we need to know better who is participating. I know that Mr. Adnan is joining us from Bahrain. Welcome, sir. Mr. Timur, where are you? You are mute, sir. Use your microphone.
Actually, I am from Pakistan, but living in Ukraine mostly.
Great, thank you very much. I see that Amarjit Singh, Mr. Islam, and Bui so also joined. Would you like to present yourself, or you just enjoy watching the webinar? I think they just watched the webinar. Mr. Adnan or Mr. Timur, if you have any questions to the speaker, please go ahead. Mr. Adnan is a former representative of government of Bahrain to World Trade Organization. So he was working in Geneva for several years. We were a good friend, also cooperating with University of Business and International Studies. Welcome to the board, and if you have something common to say on
yes, I do have a question. Hello, Mr. Kamal, how you doing?
Yeah, pleasure to meet you, Mr. Adnan. Thank you very much for your participation.
Pleasure meeting you as well. Question concerning oil and gas, as you are aware and expertise in this field. Oil and gas is a very sensitive product. It's a very politicized commodity globally.
Yeah.
So my question to you, for example, for countries who are depending mainly on the production of oil and gas for their economy, what do you suggest to diversify their economy in general? as we all have seen, the disaster of the pandemic or COVID-19 reflected negatively on our economy, especially or specifically in the Gulf region here. So I would like just to hear some, recommendation or goals or ideas, just to enhance the focus on other sectors as a major or different kinds of income for the national economy or for,
Okay.
for the GCC, for example.
Yeah, thank you very much. Question. Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Adnan. Actually, whenever I start my discussion with the experts in who is the actively involved in oil and gas sector, the first question I get I get this question firstly because uh, whoever I just started my discussion regarding this, because they most of the concern and then the question who is addressing me, they are the citizens, the countries who is the mainly exporting, who's producing crude oil. Also, the Bahrain is also one of the active like players who's also I think the part of the OPEC. And yeah, it is like the sometimes it is easier to answer, but sometimes not that much because like each country who is the mainly dependent on crude oil, they have another like the let's say we'll call it talents or the other like sectors in terms of the improvement depend like the countries like the Soviet countries, let's say in Kazakhstan or Russia, even I can say that Azerbaijan, we have the more than 70% of the dependence from the oil export. And then the first we see, we have seen this is negative impact starting from 2015 because the business model in somehow the similar these countries. Um, because I will tell you because the population the well enough in terms of production, it's not that high than the Middle East countries. Like the case in United Arab Emirates cannot be compared like case with Kazakhstan because the population in United Arab Emirates it's much more that acceptable in terms of the data production. But what we see, they did the tremendous and the same time great job in terms of the diversification, their governmental budget. Only 13% of they keep like production, which is the formulating the governmental budget. What they did, they created trade zone, free trade zone. They got a lot of branch of international investors. They did a great job in terms of the improving the tourism and financial markets. So this let's efficiently decrease the dependence on the countries on the crude oil, which is the great action. Of course, we have seen this kind of action in several countries, what I just enumerated, like the Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan, and Russia. They because the first sign what we saw in 2015, the countries they were doing the great job in terms of the preserving their national currencies because the first red zone, the first signal comes when we see that in the country they get devaluation against their national currencies. And Russian, the devaluation it happened 100% in Kazakhstan. The same case in Azerbaijan, same case. They also already switched it from the fixed rate to floating rates, which is the line this the changes in the global market price effectively impacts the national currency as well. Uh, Definitely, the concentration risk on specific commodity price or commodity assets, it's a two risk. 75% of governmental budget, it's only an export of the crude oil. It's a risky. Definitely, the countries based on the specification, they need to think at diversification. Like in case of like countries like Azerbaijan, I can say that we as a country we start from 2015 actively improvement and developing this tourism. or SME business cycle, which is this is good point in terms of to keep the business in a certain level. Like in case of Bahrain, it's a country is also a huge exporter of the crude oil. As I know, this is a huge of like the governmental budget are formulating based on the exporting crude oil. And yeah, this is a good but as long as I know, the population in Bahrain, it's not now, it's less than 10 millions, right?
Exactly. Cosmopolitan is around
Yeah,
1.5 million. You know.
yeah. This is like it's a case of the Qatar or Bahrain. They have a good reserves and like carbohydrate reserves, but that should not be make you like to chill in terms of the we have the less population, but we're not supposed to go for diversification. They only like let's say it's a main key in terms of to be not that much dependent. It's about should go the government for diversification, like decrease the dependence on crude oil and think about other perspectives how the country is supposed to invest in technologies, invest in innovations, to reduce the consumption like oil products, but think about export that apply actively like renewable energies. Think about like the improvement tourism and the agricultural sector.
Exactly. Let's take the, sorry to interrupt you, but we can take the example of Switzerland, for example.
Yeah,
Switzerland, they don't have natural resources. They have only water.
yeah,
And the case of Singapore.
yes,
Singapore is a
absolutely.
services country. Look at their economy; it's booming. I mean,
Well,
I thought just to brought it on the table, you know, just for.
yeah, I will also come up with a two good example in case of Norway and case of Finland, like two like beautiful and it's great with great economy countries. Let's Norway is also is it contains that a big like the crude oil production players in the world, but the consumption and dependence of crude oil the less because they did their diversification, same like the Netherlands because they also have the production in crude oil in the countries, but the portion of the production of crude oil in the oil and gas industry, it's something it takes 8 or 9 places in formulation the governmental budget. Finland, they actively investing in innovation technologies. It's almost like the all parties, startups, like ecosystem in Finland. It's a booming, which is a great sign. They almost they don't have that much like the resources, but what were they so they actively investing in renewable energy, solar energy, pardon me, wind energy, geothermals. They're doing a great job.
So I think it's a matter of policies or strategies in each state or each country
Absolutely depends on their like
to
capabilities.
diversify their economy rather than depending on one uh, commodity which is sensitive and
Yeah.
politicized, as we are all aware. Well,
Yes,
thank you very much for
that's
your for
yeah,
your
my pleasure.
for your answers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Alman.
Mis-
Um,
Mr. Kamal, I have a question from our students. They are WhatsApping me also, and they are asking about the current situation right now in Azerbaijan. Um, can you comment how COVID now? What are you facing in Baku?
the situation was regarding with coronavirus, with COVID. Uh, we went the second like lockdown um, in the late November. It's the beginning of December. We got like the strict lockdown, but with cases with corona, it's getting down right now. Of course, we, as most of the countries, they got like the negative impact in terms of the growing economy.
And how about education sector?
Regarding education sectors, all universities and intermediate schools also the went offline regime, the remote base. But we will expecting that Ministry of Education will come with declaration probably next week for reopening the schools. We expecting it, but that will be for sure right after the declaration by Minister of Education. We're expecting the things will should open, schools will open from the February. But for currently, we're all remote based.
Mr. Kamal, would you advise foreign education to students in Azerbaijan, let's say for one semester, for two, for full programs? I know that you've been studying in Europe a lot, like in Czech Republic, in Switzerland, in France. Do you think now Europe has something to Azeri students to propose? Would you be the one to encourage students to come, or you think like Baku universities in Azerbaijan can deliver the same quality?
Of course, we do actively dual programs with the European universities. Some our business schools they actively assign the dual diplomas with the universities in Czech Republic, in Greece, in France, in Germany. I think it's one of the university of Azerbaijan, UNEC, was also assigned the dual diploma with the UBIS University as well. So it exists a lot of the kind of the programs. Of course, this is a good sign in terms of exchange the knowledge, exchange the experiences between the two like countries' education system, which is a good sign. But at the same time, uh, we have the several universities who are providing high quality, let's say, high quality programs, high qualities like the courses as well. Definitely, we will be happy to see international students, and we have enough international students from Europe, from Africa, from Asia, who's attending the most programs in Azerbaijan in the homelands, home countries.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dadashov. And maybe a few words about oil and gas academy. I know that it's existing several years. Can
Yeah.
you say something?
Yeah, we have Baku Higher School, which is the subsidiary of the SOCAR State Oil Company of Azerbaijan, who is actively um, providing high qualified education as a dual diploma uh, with the several universities, specifically in oil and gas, engineering and drilling system with the Herit Fatih University. And also we've been involved a dual diploma with Geneva Business School in the MBA program in oil and gas management. We have high qualified the students who is working big companies like BP, Schlumberger, Halliburton, and SOCAR, and mainly school has been established based on oil and gas engineering, drilling engineering, petrochemical engineering. Now the university actively expanding their businesses in terms of establishing MBA programs, the bachelor degrees in general, and also in oil and gas management as well.
Thank you so much. And the second question from UBIS students about the advices in investment policy, in finances. Can you say something regarding Like, do we encourage students to invest in like real estate, in oil and gas maybe, or?
Or I'm sometimes preserving to console people to choose like which sector and which asset they're supposed to invest, because in risk management there is a terminology, risk tolerance or risk appetite. So this should be based on investors like the risk appetite, like, and it is like, of course, the capabilities or like the ability of investors like to choose or select this the proper the assets and then to fill it. Like sometimes we ask that, does it enough to have technical knowledge when you're investing, when you're doing investment? They say no, it's only the half. The half is about the instincts, how they fill it, right? Of course, the combination, your technical and your experience, and then your like professional instincts, is you will get the success on investment. And to be actually honest, to be concentrate uh, like in oil and gas, in technology-based companies or pharmaceutical, it's a little bit too hard to predict, because this the economy has changed. Uh, if the question you would ask me like 1 year ago, of course I will say that's actively you should invest in oil and gas. But uh, right after a month of things are changed and COVID impacted global economy. Now, most of the companies who was uh, actively involved in oil and gas, they got a bankruptcy, or they losing the value of their shares. But what we see inversely, you see these pharmaceutical companies like 1 year ago, they were not even the players in the global market. They were not going for IPO, but they are now billionaires. The market capitalization like the more than 5 billion or 6 billion way they were not existing in the global market. Or what we can see, that's a beautiful program that we are utilizing, Zoom. People like 1.5 year, they didn't know even the existence, only maybe the few people, when the market capitalization of Zoom was around the millions. But what we saw after this, like we saw like big player like Baker Hughes, like he got the loss around $20 billion from the global impaction. But we saw the market capitalization Zoom like 400 times its increase. So I think they should be aligned with the trends, what's going in the open. So it's a hard to predict in a long-term perspective. Even now, it's things are getting the hard in terms of the prediction in short term as well. But they should be actively on the trend to see that uh, which perspective will be applicable in the short term, and which assets will be profitable and they will get the high return. So again, it depends on the market circumstance a lot.
Thank you very much. Maybe our participants have more questions to the speaker. Uh, If no, I have one question to Mr. Adnan. Maybe you can say us, because I know that last year you've been just before lockdown in Switzerland. Can you compare the lifestyle, if it's changed, if Swiss economy has changed since the time you've been in World Trade Organization and last year? Do you have any similarities, differences? Can you emphasize?
Um, well, I have visited my colleagues last year, December 2019, and well, my understanding that their budget was not stable, let's say, or some countries they didn't pay their contribution. The contribution comes from the the percentage of the market share, let's say import export. So they were in a in a situation, let's say, bad situation, as they mentioned for me. But it's improving after some few months. Some countries, they paid their contribution, and the organization, the organization is performing well, better than before now these days. Speaking about during the pandemic, uh, all countries, all the whole earth, let's say, has been affected by COVID-19. Now in Bahrain, for example, the markets is open, the coffee shop is open, restaurants is open, with distancing, of course. If any owner of a business, for example, let's say cafe or restaurant, made any violation to the rules or regulation concerning COVID-19, will be subject to penalty, closed down for a while until he paid. Well, it's concerning the distancing. I'm sitting now in a coffee shop in a quiet area, and the businesses, it has been affected in the island here. Lots of places they closed down. I'm a consultant in the market. I do visibility studies, and many businesses has closed down, and we are in a recession period. But comparing it with March, April, now it's much more better. The cycle is moving, the money is moving. It's much more better. Let's say there is some kinds of positive indications in the market. But nevertheless, the effects is there. It will take some time. From my perspective, it might take a year, for example. The vaccination is available. Adnan had made a Pfizer. I took the first dosage, and after 20 days, 21 days, which is the 7th of February, I'm going to take the second one. So it's available for everybody here, whether national or people who are living in the island here. So I'm very optimistic about the economy, either in Bahrain, which is a very small economy, small country here, and I'm very optimistic about global economy as well. But it will take a little time to recover. But
Thank you
it's
very much.
welcome.
Thank you for your answer. I am thankful for participants and for our speakers. Mr. Kamal, you covered a very serious topic, and I wish prosperity to Azerbaijan, to SOCAR, also to overcome all this, crisis situation and get back to previous volumes and even better volumes. I have some small information short information to our agents, as University of Business and International Studies is using from January the new platform for online education. It is called Cengage. It's American platform, open source. We are one of the first European universities to use it. I will be providing a training, and I will show you in real life how our students have access to these materials and to software skills. About 50 courses we provide of software skills, plus to usual UBIS program. And content is very rich, so I will be sending you recordings and movies, how to use it, so that it is easier for you to explain to the client. Mr. Dadashov, I let you say a final word so that we close the session, and I will hope we have your classes soon in coming semesters.
Yeah, many thanks, Ina, for great organization, and pleasure to meet all participants. Within like 45 minutes, I think we tackled most important the parts regarding oil and gas sectors, and I've just shared with my insights and my experience, what I faced before. And yeah, I also wish you guys all my best. Wish you prosperity. Hope this year will be positive There was a lot of positive signs and positive the events, and of course will change our life better, and we'll see a lot of dynamics. We'll see positive events, and which will everyone will join. So I also wish you my best, of course, to stay safe. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'm encouraging agents to get back to me in case you have questions or if you analyze so that I can pass information to the speaker. And I wish you all to be healthy. Nowadays, we are available for you if you decide to have a webinar to your specific market, to your specific country. Let me know what topics are interesting for your employers or for your customers. So we are trying to put all the time the customer in the center of our attention and to personalize the approach to every specific company and region. So I will be grateful for your feedback, and you will all receive a recording of today's webinar. Thank you very much for joining, and again, wishing you a great rest of the day, and stay safe.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
So thank you very much.
Goodbye from Geneva.
Goodbye from Bahrain.
Bye.
Nice meeting you guys.
Nice.
Thank
Bye
you.
bye.
Bye bye.